So, what's gender neutral legislative drafting? Like many of the states, California has adopted and therefore requires the Office of the Legislative Counsel to draft legislative measures, bills, resolutions, constitutional amendments in a gender neutral manner. What exactly does that mean and how does it work? Specific to California was the adoption of Assembly Concurrent Resolution, ACR 260, which is Chapter 190 from the 2018 California legislative session. And according to the text of the measure, it's intended to encourage the legislature to engage in a coordinated effort to revise existing statutes and introduce new legislation with inclusive language by using gender neutral pronouns or reusing nouns to avoid the use of gender specific pronouns. In addition, ACR 260 encourages state agencies to engage in similar efforts to use gender neutral pronouns and avoid the use of gender pronouns when drafting policies, regulations, or other formal guidance. ACR 260 was authored by Assemblymember Evan Lowe from the Silicon Valley. And so, as I mentioned, California is one of many states that now require gender neutral drafting. For example, Section 5.8 of the Colorado Legislative Drafting Manual, I think, is probably indicative of other states' requirements. And it begins that the Legislative Council has directed that gender neutral language be used for all legislative measures, and that their Committee on Legal Services has formally approved guidelines for the use of gender neutral language. And then the Colorado Drafting Manual goes on to provide explicit directives to bill drafters in that state. So basically, in California and most other states, bill drafters are told to avoid male or female gender terms, except when a gender specific term is actually applicable and necessary. Nonetheless, in most instances, drafters are admonished to make sure that neither intent nor clarity of language is sacrificed when using gender neutral language. And of course, standard grammar and punctuation standards and rules should still be followed by the bill drafter. Slowly but surely, drafters in California are making their way through existing statutory provisions in an effort to transition over to gender neutral language among the existing laws in our 29 codes. As a result, sometimes in addition to using gender neutral language in a new statute, existing code sections are also being reviewed and modified or actually amended to ensure compliance with the gender neutral drafting guidance. Pursuant to this guidance, drafters are encouraged to avoid the use of, gender specific nouns. For example, use police officer rather than policeman, or presiding officer instead of chairman, etc. While these examples likely appear to be obvious, it can be difficult at times in drafting measures using purely gender neutral language. As a result, suggestions to the legislative drafter include repeating the subject of the sentence, omitting the phrase with the pronoun if the phrase isn't actually needed, or even rewriting the sentence to avoid the need of using any pronoun. Also, drafters are told to not use phrases such as he or she or his or her. So gender neutral legislative drafting basically ensures that state statutes and regulations are written in an inclusive manner of all individuals and residents of the state. And certainly this comports with the current national drafting guidance across most of the states.